The Ohio State Buckeyes have now rung in the new era of college football, winning a national championship with a quote-unquote $20 million roster. We are now into this era of college football where NIL dominates the space. The transfer portal dominates the space. Coaching moves, player movement, contracts, all this other stuff is going to control the space of college football for the foreseeable future. So I want to talk about the top 5 most important things that your football program needs to succeed over the next 15 to 20 seasons. So number 5, from least important to most important, number 5 is a history of success. The Indianas of the world are not the new college football blue bloods. This theory that somehow this is going to change the map of where good college football is found, it doesn't exist. I am not a buyer of Indiana. I understand they make the college football playoff. They go 11-1 during the regular season. They had a very lucky year. They got a ton of breaks. They had Michigan on their schedule. Michigan was nowhere near as good as people thought that they were going to be. Of course, they had a head coaching change, a ton of players drafted, this, that, and the other. Does Indiana draw that again next season and go 11-1? I seriously doubt it. If I was a serious betting man, I would put a lot of money on Indiana not making the playoff next year. I don't think Curt Cignetti has somehow cracked the code to beat college football blue bloods and become the Boise State of Big Ten football. It doesn't make any sense. He had a great season. He deserves a tip to the cap. He capitalized off of the weakness of others and got to the college football playoff. But Indiana is not the blueprint here of how to succeed over the next 15 to 20 years. What you need is a history of success. Another good team that doesn't have a lot of history of success, the Ole Miss Rebels, despite having a really good coach in Lane Kiffin, bringing all these players in through the portal and through recruiting, there isn't a history of success here. I don't know how much the Ole Miss Rebel fan base is willing to invest in this team without a long historied resume of winning football games. I think Lane Kiffin has been there now for 5 seasons, and he has 1 year of 10 regular season wins. It's the only one in Ole Miss football history. That, to me, says it all. And I don't think that Ole Miss is going to be a national title contender over the next 5 to 10 seasons. Will they make the playoffs? Potentially. But to me, that is building the resume of an Ole Miss team in 20 to 25 years trying to recruit players and get players in the portal. Here, look, we've been relevant now for 15, 20, 25 years. This is a more convincing argument to bring players to your organization. Now, number 4, a national fan base. And I mean this in a lot more ways than one. Obviously, number 1, do you have a big alumni base? Do you have a large state population that is dedicated to your football program? For example, New Mexico has, I think, the same or very similar amount of people that Alabama and Mississippi have. Maybe a little less, but still. Those fans are not dedicated to anybody. The fans in Alabama are dedicated to Alabama football and Auburn football. On top of that, they have won and had that history of success over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And so they are on national television. They are able to draw audiences from all across the country. Some of the most recognizable logos across the world are college logos like Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. So with that being said, does your brand, your college brand, provide recognition to players and other people on that platform? Another Mississippi example. Sorry, Mississippi is getting a ton of hate today for some reason. But Mississippi State does not have the brand awareness to recruit 5-star players out of California or Pennsylvania or Illinois. Now, they do really well in recruiting out of Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, in this region. But to be a national title contender, you've got to show me that you can absolutely reach across state lines not only around you, but throughout the country and recruit at a very high level. We've seen this done with Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, even LSU has won 4 national championships, I believe, three or four national championships in the 21st century. And it's because they've had great recruiters like Ed Ogeron, Nick Saban, that have the history of success behind their brand, LSU. Not to mention, they also have a national recognized fan base, logo, university, alumni base. That's why I think one of those things is so important. If I haven't heard of your school and I'm a 17-year-old phenom and my family's well-being is on the line, am I going to commit to you over another school that has those things? Absolutely not. So national fan base, number 4 thing that programs need going forward. Number 3, how draftable are your teams? This is the Boise State versus Ohio State argument. With Boise State, you have this regional fan base that's decently large, especially for a group of 5 school, but you also have a history of success here. Mountain West championships, now a college football playoff appearance. You have that massive bowl win versus Oklahoma back in 2007. Tons and tons of wins, and you have a decently sized fan base. But how draftable are your players? We do not see that many players from Boise State going down in the annals of NFL history. However, you go look at Ohio State, you've got Garrett Wilson, you have CJ Stroud, you even have a ton of other players like Dwayne Haskins getting drafted in the first round over and over and over again. Marshawn Lattimore is another example. You've got a ton of historied drafted players. Alabama, of course, another example. Even USC has this. They have not been that great of a college football franchise over the last 15 years, but you still have guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Caleb Williams, that have come through the program, developed, and become draftable players, specifically top 3 round drafted players. And that's what makes a university so alluring for players that want to play this game at a very high and serious level. Now, number 2, you've got to have an elite head coach. I don't remember a team in the last, 25 years that didn't have an elite coach behind them winning a national title. And for those of you who think Ryan Day is not an elite coach, go look at his 70-10 record and 4 playoff appearances. Urban Meyer had 1. He won his national championship. He has just as many national championships at Ohio State that Ryan Day now has, with a lot more experience and wins behind his name. So all that being said, I think Ryan Day's an elite coach. You go look at the Kirby Smarts, the Nick Sabans, the Jim Harbaughs. I mean, the list can go on and on. The Dabo Sweeneys. These guys defy the odds on every aspect of the field. Not only are they great recruiters, but they hire great staffs. I mean, I can't even tell you how many guys from the Nick Saban tree have gone on now to repeat his success over and over and over again. Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Kirby Smart. The list can go on and on and on. So an elite head coach that has cream of the crop program building attributes. Some guy that I like a lot that I think has those things and will succeed eventually, whether it's at his current school or another school down the road, is Matt Rule. He can show anybody his resume at Temple and at Baylor. He takes a team on the absolute brink of disaster and he brings them up to becoming a conference contending team. I think coaches like that are elite at what they do. And when it comes to how important they are, it's unbelievably important when it comes to building a program. You need coach stability, coach prestige. You want to walk in when you're trying to bring a recruit in and go to a head coach's office and see hardware. Not only hardware that he won at his current school, but hardware that he won at other schools. So a Jimmy's and Joe's recruiter, that's the guy you need. When it comes to where you go in the future of a college football dynasty, I guess we're talking about, a guy that can recruit players is a guy that is going to succeed at a high level. You saw that with LSU, Les Miles, Ed Ogeron, Nick Saban before that. You saw it at Alabama with Nick Saban. You see it now with Georgia. Even the Georgia teams with Mark Richt as their coach were still unbelievably talented, like guys like Matthew Stafford, who was recruited from Texas, AJ Green. The list goes on and on and on. If you want to be an elite college football program, the head coach is the second most important thing. The number one most important thing is money. Money, 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 money. And this can go in so many different ways. Do you have state funds that are going to build infrastructure around your college town? Not only do you have proper road systems, good travel, specifically air travel, flight travel, but do you also have facilities around your university? I'm not talking about the university itself. I'm talking about the town that your university is in. Do you have the facilities to support a widely growing college or just university in general? Specifically, I'm talking about a place like Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The University of Alabama had about, I think, roughly 15 to 20,000 students in 2005, 2006. And now that university is almost over 40,000 students. The aura has drawn in over 25,000 plus students that attend the university per year. That means that the city of Tuscaloosa has had to completely transform to accommodate not only for those students, but all of the travel, the tourist destinations that are Alabama athletics, specifically football, of course. And so the interstate has been redone. The road system has been almost completely redone. There are tons of businesses and restaurants and all this other stuff that attracts people to come to Tuscaloosa. It's lauded as one of the best places to come attend a football game, especially in the fall. So those things are important when it comes to money. The second thing is, does your university have the revenue to support a growing football program? So we look at universities like Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, even Clemson. Do they bring in the revenue to support the football program? And in all of those cases, you say absolutely. You go look at a Colorado, for example, throughout their history, the answer has been no. So are they going to be a long-sustaining, really good college football program? It depends on how they perform in 2, 3, 4, and 5. But last and most certainly not least, with money being the most important thing for what it takes to win in college football, do you have NIL donors with deep, deep, deep pockets? Just ask Ohio State how important that is to bring in top 15, 20 players in college football through the transfer portal, like Caleb Downs, like Quinshon Judkins. Those are guys who have not only contributed, but been key contributions to winning a national championship. If there wasn't deep pockets at Ohio State, we wouldn't be talking about them as national champions. This wouldn't be one of the best rosters that we've seen in the NIL era. And it's because you have so many people that are financially invested in building a good football program. So when you look at schools like Alabama, who's currently spending a lot of NIL, do they have even deeper pockets to go further into what it means to invest in NIL? I want to provide this one example that is unbelievably pertinent and important to understand the absolute exponential curve that we are about to see over the next 5 to 10 years in college football, if nothing changes in terms of the rules surrounding NIL and contracts and how they work. Last season, Cam Ward, who was the number one college football quarterback transfer, got roughly $1.5 million in NIL valuation to go to the University of Miami. In 365 days, or actually less than 365 days, Carson Beck, the quarterback from Georgia, is going to the exact same university And it's rumored that the figure is multiple millions, somewhere around $4 to $5 million. So Cam Ward, I think, was a better transfer quarterback talent than Carson Beck. Yet 1 year later, Carson Beck is making 2, 3, maybe even 4 times the amount of money in NIL that Cam Ward did. That is the exponential curve that we are seeing. Now, for those of you who wonder how this is going to change the landscape of college football, I thought it would radically change the sport and make it into something that we really haven't seen before. But in my opinion, it's going to be the same thing. If you look at college football 10 years ago, all of these 5 factors were exactly the same in the exact same order. Does your program have a history of success? Do you have a national fan base? How draftable are your teams? Do you have an elite head coach? And do you have money? Now, the difference between now and 10, 15, 20 years ago is, do you have money was a hidden question mark because you didn't talk about money. You just got a car or a jewelry or phones or apartment or house or whatever. Your parents got a check, or, you got money through some church that was around your local area. It doesn't matter. What matters is the money was always a factor. It always will be a factor. Now it's just out in the open and we're seeing those things on paper. And that's why when people bring up Ohio State, people talk about the fact that it's a $20 million roster. And it is. Now, was it $20 million 10, 15 years ago? No, it was probably somewhere around $1 to $2 million to make sure all of your players were accommodated for, especially your stars. They probably cost you $100,000, $200,000 a year. I know a lot of programs don't want to talk about that. There's a lot of negative media attention that you get when you quote unquote cheat, but there's no way that college football programs in the past were able to succeed on a long-standing platform without paying players in some shape, way, or form. I think that exact same thing is the case today, except now the media gets to know about it. The fans get to know about it. It's pay for play. It always has been. So the 5 layers of success, a history of success, national fan base, how draftable are your teams? Do you have an elite head coach? And are your pockets deep? Those have always been the questions for college football. Those remain the questions of college football. I'm going to make another video and talk about my tier list going forward over the next 5 to 10 years, who I think is going to be elite versus who is not going to be elite. So be sure to be tuned in for that. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.